repeating it, we are believing in. It's time for us to shift our mind from best in the world to best for the world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. It creates a new world to mind a shift, intentionality, perceptuality, conceptuality. We are choosing to shift our mind to best for the world, best for our world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional.
So, welcome for tonight's show. My name is Stella Nordahl, and I'm here for hosting this event together with Jens Rinnet, my colleague. We will soon talk to him. But first of all, I would say hello and welcome to all of you who are following both the YouTube live and also the web radio on bestforthe.world. So we have had an interesting 3 days here now and nights with live broadcasting from the studio here in Lomma in Sweden, but also engaged people all around the world. Up to this very point, I guess we have approximately 50 concepts or programs, so if we can call them that, and more than 100 people engaged in this project. 4 days of best for the world, inspiration and engagement. So this is one of the concepts, and we're going to talk about concept for change and what's and how's. And tonight we're going to focus on an idea and arena actually called Ship of a New Story. But before we do that, I would like to address some possibilities for you to engage. If you go to bestforthe.world, you can still engage in the program tableau. We have room in morning tomorrow in Swedish time, that's Central European time. So there's still room for people to co-create. And if you want to be a guest, please contact us and we can connect you to a proper setup, a proper concept. And if you want to support us and you maybe don't have the time or ability to host or being a guest, you can always support us on Patreon. You go to Patreon and Best for the World. So patreon.com, Best for the World. And now it's time to introduce to you my co-host here tonight, and that is Jens Rinnet. Jens, you have been working all day with a lot of different concepts. So how have your day been so far?
It has been super interesting, super inspiring. I have met so many new people actually. Some of them I already knew, but some people have been newly introduced to me. And we had very interesting dialogues from looking at the corona situation from a sustainability perspective and how that could actually be an opportunity, especially in regard to ecological regeneration. I also held a presentation about the evolution of work, and we also had this morning a spiritual download session, which was a guided healing meditation. So we have a very holistic program, and it's fascinating to see how this program and how this event is actually being self-created actually. I mean, we invited and we reached out to a lot of co-hosts, and as you just mentioned, we invited, this invitation is still open, and it's fascinating to see how many people are saying yes to this invitation and creating concepts, and yeah, from all around the world. So
yeah, I agree. I'm also very Yeah, first I was thrilled to see everything coming together, and now I'm fascinated by this power from wherever it comes from some kind of an inner source, maybe, or I don't know. But it's been fascinating in many ways. And tonight we're going to follow a step in this little program series called Concept for Change. We talked in the first program about Emprogage, the company you and I are engaged in, and how it came to be. And now I realize that I have to get another. Is your on?
No.
Okay, so I put mic number, the blue one. Is that a blue one? You can have that. And I put up. I guess that's. We just turn the mics. Hopefully this is. Do you hear me? No? Do you hear yourself? You can hear yourself. Okay, so
I'm here.
we had a little mic situation
Hello.
here. So you don't hear me yet, no? But
Richard
maybe
here.
you hear me now. Do you hear me now? Yes. So here we go. We take this mic instead. So, sorry for the interruption. So we're going to follow this line, and what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about what we have talked about in the previous programs. First, we got ourselves into Emprogage as a new way of working based on guiding principles, and then we found ourselves talking about yesterday the listening tool, which you have been working with a lot, and now we're going to have an hour of dialogue around Ship of a New Story. But to be able to do that, we have a guest here that's who is on air together with us, and that is Rickard Paulsson. Rickard, can you hear us? You are here by telephone, right? Is that right? Do we have Rickard with us?
Yes, Richard is here. Thank you for the invitation, and good evening to you all.
Good evening. In Sweden it's now evening, so we say good evening. That's nice. Rickard, you and I, we met a couple of years ago, but already maybe when we were at the university studying, and we were both engaged in the same choir. But then it took some years, and we found each other again. And you were at that point responsible for the program for a big, how can we say it, engaging arena among around visions and innovations. Wasn't that right?
Yes, and
Entrepreneurs, yeah, that's right. So, and the idea, as I understand it then, was that this was when the Agenda 2030 was just published, 2015, and you wanted to connect those who can with those who wants, right?
That's correct.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how come that it arose as an idea from start? You weren't like into event making, because this is a big event in Sweden.
No, I haven't really. It was actually the first time that we went to the event Almedalen, which is quite a special gathering for Sweden, where NGOs, the government, politicians, companies go to an island for a week to meet and talk. And at that time we were introducing a new product, a sustainable product called Big Belly. And it was an innovation, and we wanted to reach out and meet as many as possible, since this was a startup phase. And we did as everybody else did. We went to a fair, we tried to invite people, we waited for people to come to us and experience our great innovation, our great new innovation. And as you do, have the first 2 days, but what was great was we were there for 5 days, so we actually started to talk around with the other on the exhibition, and everybody said we're going to have to fix it until 2030, and that was 15 years forward. And then actually we started to talk. We had a product that you needed to you knew when you could empty this bin, so you can actually be very knowledge when and where you're driving. So you could actually have a very tight control, which meant that you could go by electric car. And on the same exhibition, there was electric cars, there was a solar panel, and there was the converter for the car. And then we found out by talking to each other and taking one innovation into a system, then we actually could, for a municipality or a company, make the shift to 2030 shift in 5 to 8 years. So by communicating and connecting the one who wants to make a change with the one who has the possibilities to do it, then the change was not a scare. We didn't go back to the Stone Age. We actually moved forward and had so many positive things from that.
So just to summarize what you just said, you were part of this innovation project, and it was hitting the market in Sweden, and you went to Almedalen, which is this big platform for societal change, a societal creation of society, where politicians meet the business, and the business meets the society, and so on. And you were there with this big belly. It's a big bin.
Yes.
Yes, and it's you can have it remote, I understand, and it compresses everything. So, and it also tells when it should be emptied, and even when it shouldn't be emptied. So you don't have to drive there if it's not full. That's right.
That's correct.
And then you tell the story that you could connect those small parts into a system.
Yes.
And at that point, I realized that you found out that maybe it was bigger than the system itself.
Absolutely, and actually, the we didn't have an arena to meet. We're actually innovation co-created together, and entrepreneurship co-created and worked with governments and municipalities. So we had a forum for information and communication. So at that time, we decided that we should start our own arena. So we found a place. We had never held an fair or an event like that before. So it was a need-based project that we actually started.
And when you talk about and when you talk about an arena, it's a word describing both a fair and a seminar, more or less a small summit. This arena, and at Almedalen there are plenty of arenas. How many arenas are there at Almedalen? Do you know that?
I think there is something like 400 in 5 or 6 days.
So for you who haven't heard of the Almedalen before, it's a huge event, a yearly event where 30,000 people meet and have these conversations, the dialogues, and those panels and everything, and also workshops. And you also had a fair, so there were people coming there with both bins and other things then.
Yes, correct. And we try to find the ones that were in the front line of in the development, and mostly in a sustainable way of thinking, and also those who were reaching out to co-create and work together. So we say that in Sweden we say you can compete over a cookie, but you can also make the cookie bigger. So by not competing, but by co-working, we could actually make a bigger market for ourselves to share with the different innovations that came into the system.
Mhm. You managed this arena for 3 years. The Innovation, it was called Innovations and
Yeah.
Visions in a we zone.
Yeah.
Mm. And what experience did you would you say you had during the first year and the second and the third?
Well, actually, we had it in 3 years. We usually put setting a question for the first year that we worked through, and at the end of every week we had new set of questions that needed to be answered. And I would say the first year was that we tried to put. Actually, we had that we needed to have the information coming to the people that was looking for and needed the information, but actually we, after the first year, said we need to communicate. We need to have a dialogue. I would say that.
So information wasn't enough.
From.
Yeah, the information wasn't enough. So the question about the information ended out in the need of a dialogue. Mm.
And so the first year we tried to do as best from what we needed, and the second year we tried to find a framework with a Swedish environmental department. They had made a white paper, and that actually checked in quite well with our questions we had for the year 2. So that was the first time we took a document and incorporated into our questionnaire to have a leverage and actually taking in information from other and inviting them into a dialogue and taking part in the arena on innovation.
And what would you say were the main findings of the second year then?
That was actually that we needed. We were in a new paradigm. We could go with new innovations, new entrepreneurship, but for the last year we actually looked into what was the structure, because we saw that we could make progress by being sustainable and with other values that maybe isn't the common one for making business decision. So for the third year we actually looked for new models to understand what we were seeing.
And that was when you and I co-created the third year of innovation, when we used the intentional decision model for the whole arena. Yep. And the setup, and we used 4 days with 4 themes, and starting out with a common ground, right? Is some kind of a value-based common ground, as I remember it. And then we moved forward about how we can have engagement. And then we had a day, I remember it was actually dedicated to Best for the World. This is a couple of years ago now. And then we had the 4th day about creating the future.
And yes. Actually what was interesting in that process was to first read the book, and then actually there was more of systems and models, and then I had my questions from the year before, and I actually found that, and I actually asked you, couldn't this be a business model too? And you said, well, let me think about it, and you did. And what was your reaction to that question?
Yeah, but there is always a business model for everything, but you have to use new types of values, new types of way of working, and so on. So I don't know what you're looking for, but I would say a reaction would probably be, let's do it.
Yeah.
So and when we talk about this book, it's called Intentional Decisions, but it's published in Swedish. But there is also a booklet that you can, if you're watching this or if you're listening to this on the web radio, there is a booklet. You can find it on bit.ly and then / intentional decisions. And then there is a booklet you can download as a PDF. And if you want to get more into the details of the model, scroll around in this 4-day event. There will probably be some kind of a show there concerning this model. Okay, so yes, Richard, we were there having this 4 days of dialogues and panels and exhibition and a lot of panelists, but also workshops that were co-created at the place. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience? For me, it was a fantastic experience. I don't know how you experienced it.
Oh, it was to once more make the cookie bigger, that you invited more people, because I was the program manager, and actually what I could think up was limited by my thoughts and my closest network. And so when I invited guests for the seminars and so on, but actually where the magic could take place was in the co-creation and where people could meet. We had something called a fika pass, which is fika in Swedish. Actually, we have a coffee break where everybody meet in the same area, which is quite unusual for Sweden. I was actually remember my idea came from when they had Fukushima in Japan, and they went to Sweden and looked on the environmental and said, what are you going to take back to Japan? And they say they have the fika house where everybody meet except if it's the boss or everybody working there, and it's very creative. So that was one of the co-creation ideas that we brought in on the third year.
And we also had a digital version of it, so it wasn't limited to this event. I remember it very clear, and it was. We also had an interesting idea which we launched the first day, and the idea was that when you go to those kind of big events, everything is pre-planned, so there is not room for new ideas to emerge. We can have, of course, conversations one-on-one, and you can have a smaller table talk and stuff like that, but not on the arenas themselves, on the scenes. So what we did was that we the first day had this idea that we would co-create an event on the fourth day. And so we managed to do that, and we set up a whole organization during those 4 days with people who came from all over this bigger event, Almedalen, and they contributed both in the program and also in the creation of it. So that was a really interesting experience, and a little bit of that experience is actually used for this event also, that when you open up and invite with an open invitation, and also when you make the ability make it able to for people to engage, then it's when it's happening. So yes, okay. So after the third year, what was then the conclusions? Because that now we're leading up to what we're going to focus on in this program. So what would you say was the main takeaways?
The main takeaways was actually that it needed to be more than 1 week. So it needed to be, or it's like doing a workshop, and even if it's a very long workshop, if it ends when you leave, then it won't come anything out of it. And so that was to be able to have it working for a longer time, and to yes.
And a longer time, and I also believe that one of the ideas that arose in my head was that how can we make it available for those who aren't there? As all of you know, that when you go to a specific seminar or an event or anything, very often you talk about things concerning people that are not in the room, and this is something that I've seen coming up over and over again. So you're sitting there trying to find solutions on issues that are actually about other people, and they are not present in the room. So the idea now for what you're going to talk about, the ship of a new story, it's actually one of those ideas that came into to this idea of bringing an event both ways, both being able to attend the event and the event itself also needed people. you need the people that it all concerned. So, Richard, before we leave you, you're going to take care of the kids. We know that, so we're very glad that we could have you here for a while in the studio, even if it's by telephone. And is there anything else you would like to add before we take it further from here?
Actually, the ship of a new story is actually to have the focus and take it step by steps. So the ship metaphor was quite interesting, since it's both a travel, and it's a travel that takes you somewhere, meet someone, and open new opportunities. So that's the thoughts I will bring with you on the ship of a new story.
So we're going also to talk about the metaphor itself, of course, because it's a very powerful metaphor. And thank you very much for your time. Anything you want to ask Richard Jens before he leaves? You have been sitting here and taking this in. I guess I saw you were also laughing at a couple of points there. Where something you think of? Do you want to address to Richard before he goes?
No, I was just nodding in basically agreeing to some of the points he mentioned, and no, I think there's no specific question at that point. But I'm looking forward now to explore the ship of the story. You both made me very curious.
Yeah, okay. So, Richard, take care of your family, and have a nice evening. And thank you very much for having the time for us here in the radio show tonight. Okay, you just end the call, and it will probably end itself. I don't know. So hopefully you just end the call. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, and enjoy the journey with the new ship.
Yes, thanks. So, as we say goodbye then to Richard there, what are your thoughts about it so far? You've heard a little bit about Ship of a New Story. You've been engaged a little bit, and in some parts maybe. And what are your thoughts right now?
I mean, what really stuck with me was what you said about that usually when you go to such events, you talk about solutions for people who are not in the room. So you're actually deciding above the head, basically. And that's a fascinating idea, to actually bring those people to Almedalen. Because from my understanding, I've never been to the event myself, but what I heard so far is that it can be quite high-level political discussion. So for me, it sounds like a good initiative to bring people who are really affected by the decisions that are taken there to actually be engaged in the decision and co-create together with decision makers, with politicians, with businesses, to make their voice heard.
Yeah, and that was actually one of the critics I've understood that against actually Almedalen, which I believe is unfair, because I met people there who came there with almost nothing on their pockets, and they could actually engage and so on. But of course, it's hard to realize that if it's the story in the newspaper and in the news is that it's elite or something. But I would say it's a very open space, and it's very narrow. It's a small medieval city, Hansa town in this little island. So when you're there. You can't really get out of there, and so there are a lot of dialogues between people who are who meet at the streets, and you can actually grab anyone and say, hey, I want to speak to you. Have you got 5-10 minutes? And everyone has got 5-10 minutes at Almedalen, and that's interesting. That's not how it's usually done in Sweden. We are right now in this situation, we are quite familiar with the physical distancing in Sweden. So maybe you've seen some of those funny pictures around people waiting for the bus or sitting on the bus from Sweden and so on. But here at Almedalen, it was totally different, and it struck me the first time I came there to be part of this innovation arena. And I believe that it's something that we should be proud of, and also engage other people in. It's a concept. The whole Almedalen, it's a concept that you could actually make global. So the idea about Ship of a New Story then is actually to instead make it an elite. We would open up a ship and taking them from the mainland out to this little island, and then be at the place for 3 days and 2 nights, and then go back to the mainland, and the crew will then shift, and another couple of hundreds can go over, and when we're at the event, we also host maybe 3 to 5 arenas. So by that, it's actually as the metaphor here is interesting again, as Richard was speaking about, because it's a transportation, it's a platform for taking us from best in the world to best for the world.
So it's actually not only the metaphorical way of speaking about it, like being shipping or sailing into the new paradigm, basically, but also a physical place and a venue for transportation, as you said, really bringing people from one place to Almedalen, host sessions there, and then go back.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm glad that you said because this is something that we realized when we were working on this idea the first time. It was a year ago approximately when we started to work on the idea, and we realized that in the Western world, at least in my when I was brought up, I was told that a metaphor was just a representation of something. But we realized very soon that talking about the Ship of a New Story, we realized it's not just a representation of it, it also is, in this case, the new story, or a new story, I would say. So it's not just a representation of a new story, it is a new story.
Yeah, and that is something which I really like to hear, because it's very congruent. And if you really want to bring change into any existing system or paradigm, you have to do things differently, and that is what I'm understanding is a different way of organizing, a different way of transporting, a different way of hosting sessions, but most importantly perhaps a different way of engaging people into the discussions that are meaningful.
Yeah, and I agree, and talking about the metaphor right now, as the situation is, it's even more interesting, because first step would be taking a metaphor from being just a representation for it to being, it is also what it's representing, but it could actually be, there's a potential for it at least to be more than what it's supposed to represent. So right now, when I think of this Ship of a New Story, again, we can look at the logo, which is a fantastic logo created of fantastic people in Emprogage who are co-created this logo in some way. I'm so thrilled by it. Eva Malmström, Ulrika Fager and Mette Koverberg were engaged in this work. I don't know exactly how it came there, but there is like there is both this wave-like thing and the static thing. Again, we have this dynamic power and the physical manifestation also, but it is also someone who is reaching out. It's a little person there, or maybe it's the world and the sun that are rising above. There are so many interpretations in such a logo, and you were going to say something here. Looked in your eyes.
Yeah, I'm curious now. Like, what's the state of the project?
Mm.
Do you have any arenas that you have already planned? How can people engage in this cooperation? Because as I heard or understand it, it's an open invitation. It is
Definitely.
created and shouldn't, or it is not limited by what you maybe see in it or
No,
that
no,
you're
no.
working with.
Again, the potential is bigger than what it's supposed to represent. So, if we look at the words here, it's about a new story, and if it was important yesterday, it's like crucial today. And we have had intense weeks as a world, and we are in some kind of a synchronized state where everyone is experiencing approximately the same world coming together. And so there is something about a new story, but there's also something about this ship, the metaphor that Richard spoke of, and we actually made the first thing we made was a story about the metaphor itself, and then we make a physical story also. So we have both a dreamlike story and a physical story. For different people need different things, and so the status right now, that's interesting because we don't even know right now if Almedalen will be held this year. The ones who arranged it, Mia Stora and her colleagues, they are saying we're planning for it, and then I'm thinking of how would a digital ship look like. What does it take to make it happen? And it doesn't have to be right from start. I mean, a part of our story is the story itself, how it's being told and how it's being created.
Do you have any ideas on how you could envision such a virtual ship?
No, not exactly. Not exactly. A couple of weeks ago, before we knew even the word corona being a virus, I had the idea that we could do this before Almedalen by using a specific ship in up in Helsingborg. It's not far from here. It's owned by a company called 4C, and it's a fantastic name. They have electrical ships which are transporting people between Sweden and Denmark on a 20-minute basis. So they're going back and forth and back and forth. So that could be one carrier of the ship of a new story. But now, as we're talking about some kind of a digital solution, well, let's test something. We last year at Almedalen we brought a workshop for co-creation, because we need co-creation in this setup to be able to create the ship of a new story. I guess many people will have to engage, or will have to. That's the thing with the story itself. There are so many interesting stories at the same time that can be told. So I don't know if that was an answer to your question.
Yeah, I mean it's an invitation, I guess, to co-create. So how could people get in contact? Where can people reach out to if they find this way of engaging, being engaged, interesting?
Yeah, first of all, Richard, we didn't tell us, but maybe it was because I didn't ask him, but last spring we had a project team setting up the fundamentals to be able to more or less a project plan, as you're going to do some kind of a co-create an arena or 5 then you need some kind of a common language. So they said they put together a common language and a project plan to be able to do it, denominate the people as this function is needed, this function is needed, that kind of stuff is needed, and so on. And so that's one thing. And you asked something else. You asked
where people can
Well, people. Okay. Shipofanastory.com. It's a fantastic website right now. We have to fill it, but it's beautiful, so we have to fill it with content. The logo is definitely up there, and otherwise, I would say the best way to engage would be contact someone in Emprogage, Emprogage.com. There you find some of the people also that you met in all those shows, and reach out to us, and we can do it together. I guess that's the best way to do it.
Okay, is there anything else that you find interesting in mentioning or worth mentioning in this context? Why do you believe personally that this is a way forward?
Yeah, this is a multi-level question with multi-level answers.
I don't ask the easy questions.
So okay, try to answer it. First of all, the idea behind it, that it's not only for the elite, it's for ordinary, who is ordinary and who is I don't, for people, and
For people who are normally not engaged in these kind of
yeah, that's right. Nice way to put it, Jens. I like your thoughts there, and so that's important. And then we need different types of arenas. That's one of the conclusions so far. We need maybe a idea arena. We might need some kind of a test bed arena. We also need some kind of a dialogue arena. And I think you also talked about some kind of a reaching out arena with big platforms that we know already exist, like TEDx. We had interesting here. I think it was the program before talking about the TEDx Malmö. Maybe we could have a TEDx ship of a new story on board the ship, and democracy arena. We need some kind of a next step in the democracy and.
But it's not democracy, or I mean I saw it in the project, and it's spelled very
Democracy.
crazy.
Yeah, that's just playing with the words again. For many people, this is semantics, but I would say in the semantics lies the power with the words, and being able to call it democracy. It's funny already when you say it, and why not having fun while we are having a democracy?
Absolutely, I think that's the way to engage, to make it, first of all, we spoke about it before, like lowering the barrier for those that are normally not engaged in these dialogues, to include them, but also to reduce barriers for them to take the step forward and engage in these discussions.
Yeah, that's right. And being able to co-create is also to be able to co-create on the or engage on the right level. So as we have done in those programs, I mean, one possibility is to host something, but you don't have to host. You can also be a guest, but you don't have to be a guest. You can also contribute in contacts, in sharing stuff or support.
Yeah, just telling the story is also co-creating. So
Definitely.
like you said, sharing this information, sharing the video, forwarding it maybe to a person that you know is able to host a session, to co-create in any way. So it takes involvement and engagement.
Yeah. So maybe we should round this session up, and as we have had Richard Pelson here in the studio by telephone, I would also like to take the opportunity to introduce the hashtag he is contributing with in this whole program series. It's the hashtag likes to do. So there you see it in the picture. So the hashtag likes to do. It's when you like something, but it doesn't stop by liking it. It's something you decide upon to do. So likes to do is the hashtag for all those likes that previously just was a thumb up. It's now also as a decision to take it further. So hashtag likes to do. And before we end, Jens, anything else you want to add?
I was just thinking about why it's important to exactly have, instead of only liking something, but also expressing an intention. I think that's, again, maybe it's just semantics, but I think in expressing what I would like to do, because I feel the feeling or I feel the calling to do it, I'm already moving in the direction of doing it. So this is why we decided to have this nice hashtag, and thanks for the contribution. And you will see it also on all our social media communication. And it's also an easy way to to identify maybe people in the same context, in the same areas that you're working with. What would you like to do? Talk about it, and then find the people who are doing similar things.
Yeah, and I also like. What is interesting is the connection, as you said, about liking and doing. It's almost like wanting and choosing. Yeah, a lot of things you want to do, but what you choose to do. So thank you very much, everyone, for being with us here tonight, and we're going to end this session and make room for the next one. And if you want to know more about Ship of a New Story, shipofnewstory.com, or you contact someone at emprogage.com. And well, take care. And if there is anything else you want to add as a listener or a viewer, just contact us or in the comment field, and we will get back to you, of course. Thank you very much for tonight, and shall we say hello to the audience, Jens? It's I think it's up there. Bye. Take care.
We are creating the world we're now living in. We are competing in. We are repeating in. We are believing in. It's time for us to shift our mind from best in the world to best for the world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. It creates a new world to mind a shift, intentionality, perceptuality, conceptuality. We are choosing to shift our mind to best for the world, best for our world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional.